Alright, so here's another stained glass tip. What happens is, inevitably, when you have a big piece like this, you're going to end up with little gaps in there. And you try to avoid that, but sometimes it just happens. So have little tiny holes like this, and when you go to solder it, the solder likes to just fall right through and will bleed onto the back side of it, and then you get this big ugly glob of solder on the back side. So what I do is I take, this is just copper wire. I've actually pulled this out of a house that was getting demolished, and I pulled a bunch of the wire out and stripped it. This is just really old copper wire, nothing special about it. But I take this and I'll cut little bits off like that, and I will stick that right down in there. See, that one's a little bit too long. Right down in these holes, and I'll flex them up, and I'll make sure that once it's, you can see that little kind of piece of copper wire in there, you can see that one, I've got another one up in here. And that way, once the flux is, you flex it up and solder it, but the solder is not going to seep all the way through, because that little tiny piece of wire is going to fill up that gap. It's going to keep the solder from running through the other side. It's relatively cheap. I mean, sure, copper wire is expensive these days, but if you're just using old wire that you had laying around the house, it's not expensive at all. So that's just another little trick I use to keep the solder from falling through the cracks and on the other side.